Tick tock, man to walk. Your silence breeds complacency. Tick tock, man to walk.
Hello everybody, this is Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases, but also as time passes I've been covering other cases such as the Staircase or OJ and many wrongful convictions of youth. I go over the documents, the photos, the videos, anything case related, so stay tuned because I have many more videos just like the one you're about to see. Hello everybody, how you doing? We're here today now with the upcoming release in 5 days of Making a Murderer 2. We're here to talk a little bit about Ken Kratz. Because those of us who were there when Making a Murderer came out and we saw what happened following it, we know that Ken Kratz came out and said quite a few things that were just proven to be dead wrong. I'll talk about some of those things later in this video. But that's what he does. So I can expect, you can expect to be hearing from Ken Kratz most likely when Making a Murderer 2 airs this coming Friday when it's made available. So beware. Okay? Some of the things that he says will make you want to go, oh, well maybe he is guilty. Well, maybe, but don't just take what Ken Kratz says at face value, ever. Don't ever do it. Okay? He lies. And I've pointed out so many points where Ken Kratz has lied. It's ridiculous. I'll post some of the links to those videos down below. Another problem is that so many people, seem to be so many people that just bought those lies and never looked any deeper and never found out that there was no truth to many of them. That it was really just figments of his imagination, really. In reference to the sweat DNA, that was just a joke because there's no such thing as sweat DNA. So for him to be suggesting it meant he was trying to make a joke of the fact that DNA could be planted. Well, it turns out there may be a method. A method has been suggested that's not carrying around vials of sweat that is much more plausible than sweat. So it really looks like he was trying to suggest sweat as this ridiculous thing to try to get people off of the trail. I have another video about that. I'll leave it for you below. It's called the Hood Latch DNA, right? I'll leave it down below. The other thing is, like I was saying, is that other people seem to buy those. And an example of that is there's a little podcast on Apple, iTunes, called Conspired. And a friend of mine, the lovely Miss Carla Garcia, listened to it and immediately came to me going, look, we need to address this because they're just spewing out the facts as they understand them. And it's basically all the stuff that Ken Kratz said following the first documentary. And I said, oh, okay, well, that is trouble because a lot of that stuff is just not true. So I'll leave the link to the video that Carla Garcia and I did, where we basically refuted a lot of the things that were said in the Conspired podcast. When you're watching the video, when I put that link for mine and Carla's video, in the information below that video, when you're watching that video, in the information below that is a link to the iTunes, to the actual Conspired episode, if you want to watch that first, so you can go and actually see what we're actually referencing in our video. So anyways, all that stuff will be there. You can get to it if you want. It's extensive, the fact that Ken Kratz has said a lot of things that have proven false and that are, well, just lies, really. Well, one we're going to address today is his claim that he was never approached by the filmmakers to be part of the documentary. Right? He made that claim. He did. He said he was he never was asked or anything like that. Well, Miss Ricci Rd kept records or kept copies of her correspondence in regards to the documentary, and so she was able to provide the proof herself. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at that right now. So this is the first part of a letter written by Miss Laura Ricci Rd one of the makers of the documentary MAM, or Making a Murderer, and Making a Murderer 2. And this is a letter she wrote to Ken, Special Prosecutor Ken Kratz, way back when they were filming this back in 2005, 2006. And so, with Ken's claims that he was never asked to be a part of it and all that he said, I mean, this right here, what we're going to talk about here today, is proof of one of many lies, and I'll go into a couple other ones after this. So anyways, dear Special Prosecutor Kratz, although our paths have figuratively and literally crossed many times, you and I have not formally met. Thus, I write to introduce myself and tell you about my independent, non-fiction film project. I am co-producing and directing a feature-length documentary that deals in part with the Halbach case. Overall, the film is intended to provide viewers with an inside look at the evolution of the Wisconsin criminal justice system over the past 2+ decades. The film utilizes Steven Avery's experiences within the justice system as a vehicle for exploring an array of significant legal, political, and social issues. When the Halbach case came to light, I was living and studying in New York City. I was in my 4th year of graduate film studies at Columbia University School of Arts. I'd enrolled at Columbia after practicing law in Chicago for approximately 4.5 years. The day before Thanksgiving 2005, side-by-side photographs of Steven Avery appeared on the cover of the New York Times. In one photo, he was shown walking out of prison in 2003, and in the other, officers were leading him into a court in 2005. The caption said something to the effect of "man freed by DNA, now charged in a new crime." My interest was immediately piqued, so I read what was a tragic and complex and compelling Times article. Although the article emphasized the negative impact that Steven's post-exoneration arrest was having on the Wisconsin Innocence Project, it was clear that the crimes had affected numerous individuals and communities within which these events were unfolding, and as well as the entire state of Wisconsin. Given my background and interest, I decided to pursue the story. As I attempt to cover Steven Avery's legal experiences over the past 26 years and the myriad issues that are raised, my objective is to include a wide range of perspectives. I want to talk to prosecutors, judges, defense attorneys, law enforcement, legislators, family members of the victims and the accused, average citizens, plaintiffs, and defendants. In fact, the film depends on this diversity of insight. I want to enable viewers to hear from all those involved, including professionals like yourself who work daily within the system, so that the viewers will be positioned to form their own opinions. I write to offer you an opportunity to participate in the film. Viewers would truly benefit from learning more about your role as representative of the people, how that affects or is affected by your relationship to victims and their families, your objective in prosecuting this case, how this case bears upon the system, the relationship of truth to justice in the criminal process, special concerns, if any, that you have trying a high-profile case, meaning media presence, cameras in the courtroom, and the like. My crew and I understand and respect that there are matters that you cannot discuss while the case is pending, and some matters that you might never be willing or for legal or ethical purposes be able to discuss. Thus, I suggest a pre-interview telephone conference so that together we can determine the scope and nature of the interview. I am aware that the subject matter is of an extremely sensitive nature, and I want to let you know that I have sent a letter of introduction to Tim Halbach, and I have had coffee with Mike. I cannot say whether they themselves or any of their loved ones will choose to have a voice in this film, but I think it is important for you to know that I have reached out to them and invited them to take part. Thank you for your consideration. I hope to hear from you. Sincerely, Laura Ricci Rd. So we see that she not only reached out, but she was really very humble about it, was trying to explain really what she was trying to do so that, you know, it would be hard to misunderstand her purpose and her you know, what she was going after here and what her interest really was. Particularly the part where she's talking about we can do a pre-interview on the phone and discuss what the scope of the interviews would be, to where she's essentially saying, you know, yeah, we'll let you have, you know, control over what gets, you know, talked about and whatever. So, you know, I mean, she's basically just saying, yeah, we understand, we get it. I mean, she's being, this is not like she's being bullish or aggressive or trying to, you know, bully or anything like that. She's just being very humble and understanding that it's a tricky process, but she was hoping that he could take part. And therefore, in all of this, the whole point is that she did ask him, and his claims that he was never asked or never approached are, like a lot of other things that he says, lies, which we're going to be going into very soon here. All right, so, you know, yes, clearly he was asked, he was approached, and he claims that he makes the otherwise is ridiculous. So that brings me to, you know, some of the other things that King Kratz has claimed that prove false. He claimed, after Making a Murderer came out, he claimed that Teresa was afraid to go to the salvage yard. Okay? This was a big part of his claim of, you know, a big part of his whole narrative. It's not true. And I've done videos showing it in the documents that it's not true. It's just not. She absolutely knew where she was going, and she had no fear of going there. So it's just not true that she was afraid, as he claims. There's a lot of other things. Like, he talks about the sweat DNA being on the hood latch. Now, the thing about that is he claims, oh yeah, you think officers were carrying around little vials of sweat? No. And yeah, that would be ridiculous, but no, that's not it. It's not always guaranteed that sweat has DNA in it. It's not the sweat that has DNA. It's cells, skin cells that come off with the sweat sometimes, that those skin cells have DNA. And so there's no guarantee that any amount of sweat is going to have DNA in it, is what I'm getting at. So what would be a guarantee of having skin cells on it would be a swab. If you swabbed somebody in their cheek or in their groin area, then you would get a lot of skin cells in that swab. So that would be the way. So when King Kratz tries to tell you about how ridiculous it would be them carrying around vials of sweat is, well, for many reasons. Number one, it would be silly to imagine officers doing that, carrying around little vials and stuff of a liquid, right? But not only that, because sweat isn't even guaranteed to have DNA in it. And King Kratz, I mean, he just said whatever he wanted to say, hoping that people would just go along with it. And some people did. Those of us who were looking deeper and looking into the documents and were able to look and find it, were able to see that a lot of the things he said weren't true. So, one of the other things that I'm going to talk about now, and that gives me a chance to talk about good old Brendan Dassey, of course. These are the Control Question t-shirts. They are now available. I got a batch of them over here getting ready to go out, you know, over there. So so it turns out that it's pretty much going to be $5 in the US to send the shirts. So for those of you in the US who want to get one, just got to go to the MAM Eric Jose MAM Facebook page, or you can email. I'll leave an email address in the info below this video, where you can send me a message letting me know what size, where it goes, and all those sort of things, size, color, and where it goes. So I'll leave that link for the email below for that. But anyways, why it pertains to Brendan Dassey is one of the things that Brendan's lawyers got very upset about was Mr. Kratz showing up at, like I said, Brendan originally had his conviction overturned at the district level by Judge Duffin. Okay, the state appealed it, and it went to the 7th Circuit Court to a 3-judge panel. And at that point, at the oral arguments, is when King Kratz showed up and was talking to the press, like outside, you know, of the courtrooms and stuff in like the lobby area, and he started talking to the press. And well, here, let me show you. This is a meme made by my buddy Dave in Wisconsin. Now, for those of you who aren't fully, you know, versed on what happened with Brendan, really, a lot of you know that he was ordered released, you know, about 7 months after the documentary came out. Most people heard about that. Well, that was appealed. That decision was appealed to the 7th Circuit Court, the federal 7th Circuit Court, and by the state. And then at the oral arguments for that, King Kratz himself showed up and was out speaking to the press in the lobbies out, around the outside of the courthouse and stuff like that. And then he was giving statements, and it was infuriating, really, for like Brendan's lawyers and stuff, because of the things he was saying. He's so badly disgraced for him to be showing up and even speaking about this, because when you think about it, he wasn't involved with the interrogation, which is why they were there. Brendan's the whole reason he was at the Seventh Circuit Court, and the whole reason that this appeal was happening and everything, was whether or not his confession was coerced. Kratz wasn't there for the interrogation of Brendan, so therefore the only thing he has to do with Brendan's confession is the way that he used it to hang Stephen and Brendan in the media and in the public eye long before their trials came along. So the fact that he showed up to speak at the very first appeal with the Seventh Circuit Court is amazing. Brendan went on to win this day, actually. Well, they had the oral arguments, and eventually Brendan prevailed. The 3 judges voted 2-1 in his favor, and he was supposed to be released again. But then Brad Schimmel, the Wisconsin Attorney General, filed for what's called an en-banc review. Now, an en-banc review is extremely rare, very rare. And I'll put it this way: the odds of getting an en-banc review are actually less than it is to get a case in front of SCOTUS, to get a writ of certiorari with SCOTUS. That it's harder to do than that. So that's how improbable getting an en-banc review is. He filed for an en-banc review basically in Hail Mary, and it was granted. And then a judge stepped down just at the right time where he was not part of the en-banc review bench, essentially, and the decision ended up going 4-3 against Brendan. And so that's why, if some people are wondering why Brendan's not out, it's because of that. A very desperate move by the state that worked out. It happened. It just worked out. It's amazing. It's truly amazing, considering after Brendan was marching through the whole process, and he had won twice already, and it was all very, very strange. So yes, King Kratz really is just, he should not be saying anything, especially when it comes to Brendan, because he never had any evidence against Brendan. All he had was the coerced confession, and why he would be there speaking to the press when it comes to Brendan is just beyond me, because the only connection he has, like I said, is the only connection he has to the confession is the fact that he used it unethically to convict Stephen and Brendan in the court of public opinion long before their trials. So that's about all the connection he has to the coerced confession of Brendan Dassey. So things are going to really start to get pretty interesting here, folks, but a couple things I want to say. Try to remember, the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department is different than the Manitowoc County Police Department. So try to remember these things as you know, when you're watching him making a murder or two and stuff. Just remember, those two things are different. The Sheriff's Department is the one that was after Steve. So, you know, and you just want to kind of be sure about things like that, you know, because otherwise, you know, a bunch of people catch a bunch of flack that they didn't deserve because they weren't even involved, just because of one word between sheriff and police, right? So that's another thing I wanted to remind people of. You know, because hey, making a murder was, I mean, it affected people. They saw what was going on there, and no matter what, they had concerns. There were just things there that bothered pretty much anybody. It didn't matter who you were. So anyway, that's about it for this video, beware of Kratz. He will emerge. He will say things. It's just the way he is. So just beware. And like I said, check out the videos below. I have several about him, but the ones below I'll put are like beware the lies of Ken Kratz. I'll put Oops, We Did It Again, which is about him and Tom Fassbender, and a lot of the other videos I told you I'd put. So that's about it for today. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see ya.